All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Campus Reform P.A.S. Report special interview. I got two great guests today. Before I get to them, make sure you go to campusreform.org and follow Campus Reform at Campus Reform and go to the P.A.S. Report website, pasreport.com. I want to welcome today's guests because I have Gloria and Stevie Giorno. And Gloria is the author of a brand new book, Outcast, How the Radical Left Tried to Destroy Your Own Conservative. And they're good at doing that a lot of times. But Stevie fought back, and I have him here as well. And I want to talk about what you experienced, because I think there's millions of Americans right now that are experiencing the same thing that you experienced, Stevie, and will experience going forward. So you decided that you were going to attend Belmont University. The first question is, what made you select Belmont University? Because I think the audience will find that fascinating.
Well, our family's from Chicago, and we left Chicago in 2014 and we moved to Williamson County, Tennessee. It's about 15, 20 minutes south of Nashville, where I attended a very nice private school, Battleground Academy in Franklin. It was a small school, and I was very grateful to have moved to a place like Tennessee. And so in 2018, when I was graduating, I wanted to go to a small Christian school, which is similar to BGA. And I wanted to stay close to Nashville. And I decided to go to Belmont because I had heard all these great things of how Belmont was a small Christian conservative university. And in 2018, there were not a whole lot of those left. And when I toured with my family, they were very quick to say that they were a small Christian conservative university. And we were sold a bill of goods, and I had ended up attending there. And I remember my first week there, things changing very quickly. Once you kind of saw the faculty, the administration, and the students, I saw that it was not the self-proclaimed Christian conservative school that they had advertised to us when we were making the decision of where I wanted to go to school.
And can you just throw out a few examples of what made you quickly realize that the school wasn't as conservative or Christian as you anticipated?
Well, it's a very popular music school. So you get a lot of music students, get a lot of artists, and they don't happen to have the same, same hair color as most people do. They tend to pick colors from the rainbow to put on their head. And that's fine. It's their choice, but I just don't think it's very conservative to be doing that. Secondly, most of the professors were teaching CRT and DEI even before that became a thing in 2020. There were so many instances where friends of mine who were conservatives were discriminated against with their grades because they stood up for what they believed in to teachers that did not agree with them. And rather than those teachers try to teach students how to think, they tried to teach students what to think. Which is ridiculous that happens in college and high school and grade school, but that's where we find ourselves. And then lastly, I would say just the overall mood of campus was, if you were a Democrat, if you were a liberal, you were more accepted. And if you were a conservative, you couldn't talk about your political beliefs as much in a political class, as much as the other side could. So they had a lot more freedom of speech than people who thought like I did, and the people who were my friends who thought that as well.
And Gloria, when Stevie was telling you about what his experiences were as he first entered this college, thinking that it was this Christian conservative school, only to find out that he was sold a bill of goods, that it was a fraud, it wasn't all that Christian or conservative, what were you thinking?
Well, we were with him the first few days. It's a parent-student orientation. We were with him. I was very surprised by what I saw. But then when we were at the service in the Curb Center, the minister speaking said everything that you would want to hear, everything that we were told was going to happen. There was no room for bullying. There was zero tolerance for any kind of discrimination. Everyone was accepted. And, he said all the right things. And unfortunately, my husband and I were like, well, it is a music school, but nonetheless, they're saying that we're a conservative Christian university. The service was conservative and Christian, but it was just a great show they put on that day.
And when Stevie started telling you about the experiences he was encountering on the college campus, what went through your mind?
Well, what went through our mind is, wow, what is our son doing here? But we did ask him if he wanted to go to a different school, but he didn't want to. He wanted to stick it out because he was already getting active in politics there. And so he was a senator with student government. So he was already trying to make changes. And I don't think we can run away from these situations. I think we need to face them head on, and we need to be the change. We always talk about that as conservatives, as the silent majority. But if we run away, we're not doing anything. Like, I grew up in communist Yugoslavia. And so I went to school in a communist country. So some of the things paralleled, especially later on in 2020, they paralleled what I went through when I was in first grade. And so I knew not to, run away from it. You have to stand up and fight it. And Croatia is a free country now. And so in Stevie's case, he's a fighter too. So he was going to change it.
And that's interesting when you bring up your background. Do you feel that the students in the United States, those that have lived here most of their lives, if not all of their lives for the majority, that maybe we've become a little too soft? Maybe it's because we haven't really had to sacrifice or experience what it's like to live under an authoritarian system like you did and like so many generations before us did?
Yes, I think that is so true, more than true. When I speak, I love speaking with young people. And when I speak, I tell them about my experience when I was in first grade. I had a backpack with me every day when I went to school with $1,000 American. I knew if there was civil unrest in Yugoslavia, but I would have to get out. I wouldn't be able to have time to look for my parents. I would have to get out. So I knew to get into a cab. I knew exactly which cab to get into. And I knew to go to the border of Yugoslavia and Italy. I grew up with that every day when I went to school. There was a police officer on the same corner every day. I knew he wasn't there in case I got lost. I knew he wasn't there in case something happened to someone, an accident or something. He was there to make sure that no one would speak ill of communism or Josip Tito, who was a dictator at the time when I lived there. So I grew up knowing that. So I have a greater appreciation for the freedoms and the independence that we have in America than I think, you're right, the everyday person who has not experienced that. I mean, I have an uncle who was supposed to be, he was incarcerated. He was put in jail because he spoke out against Josip Tito. And so he was going to be hanged the next day. And his family and friends actually, they smuggled him out of jail. And he ended up in Lyon, France, and then he ended up coming to this country. So yes, I grew up with those stories. My son grew up hearing them from me, from my father, from my family. So I have a greater appreciation. And I wish that American young people would understand that when someone says to you, we're going to give you free things, free tuition, free healthcare, free whatever, it's free stuff. You're not going to get it. You're trading in. You're getting some free things, but what you're giving up is so much greater than what you can ever imagine. But they look at me like I have another head growing out of, my neck. I mean, they just don't understand. So yes, until you've experienced it, you don't see it. But I think right now we are experiencing some of it. So I'm hopeful that the youth of today is starting to see what's going on around them.
Well, I'm a big advocate for high school seniors and even college seniors. Ship them off to some horrible, terrible country for like 3 weeks and then bring them back, and you'll see a different attitude they have towards the United States. But Stevie, I want to get to you. You were the student body president at one point. Is that correct?
I served from January of 2020 to January of 2021 as student body president.
Okay, so now that's an interesting time period in and of itself, because obviously January 2020, you come in, you're on campus, everything seems to be going as normal. Then March, we get the coronavirus. Then several months later, you get the whole Black Lives Matter and the summer of unrest, the fiery but peaceful protest. How did everything change when you were the student body president? What was going on?
Well, when I got elected, I had about 97% of the vote. I was endorsed by both the college Republicans and the college Democrats because being student body president, being in student government, it should not be a political job. It should be doing the best job you can to keep tuition low, keep student fees low, and make sure that students are being taken care of on campus how they should be. Well, until March, things went very well. And then, of course, they said, 2 weeks to slow the spread. We're going to be back, right after spring break. We're going to wait an extra week or two. but we'll be coming back to campus. And of course, we all know that did not happen.
No.
Then we get to the summer and we have all these people who are protesting, saying that America is the most terrible country that has ever existed, that we're an evil, racist country. And it bothered me, you know, as someone who has heard of all these terrible stories of what goes on in these other countries. And then for people who, millions of people come to this country illegally because we are such a great place. I don't see anyone going to North Korea. I don't see anyone going to China or Canada for a matter of fact. And so on the 4th of July, as all of my fellow students are posting how they can't stand America, how we're an evil country, I posted a picture of myself in front of the White House where I said I was proud to be an American, and I thanked those who had served and our forefathers for the freedoms that we have, that they intended for us in 1776. And within 24 hours, there was a change.org petition that was seeking to impeach me. I had hundreds of negative comments on that Instagram post, which is still public and still up to this day. I'm very proud of it. And lastly, my fraternity was telling me that if I did not apologize and endorse the Black Lives Matter organization, they were going to do whatever it took to destroy me. But thankfully, Tennessee is a single party consent state, which means as long as one person knows in a conversation that they're recording, you're allowed to record. And so I was able to have all these screenshots from emails, from text messages, from Instagram comments, including the transcripts of the recordings that I took when I sat down with the fraternity, when I was meeting with students. So we got to keep track of everything going on, which I was very grateful for, because you hear about this happening so many times, but there's never any concrete proof. You always hear about the aftermath. You hear about little bits and pieces. However, with the book that my mom has written, you are in the trenches with us for every decision that is made, every word that is told to us, and it completely changes the way you see what happened at Belmont to me in 2020.
I find that amazing, because it's an innocuous tweet, a July 4th tweet that was sent out. Now, 30 years ago, we didn't have Twitter, thank God. But if we did have Twitter, nobody would have batted an eye about a July 4th tweet in front of the White House. Like, it wouldn't have been something that caused such outrage. Yet today we see this absolute disdain for the United States, and you encountered it. Prior to that incident, did you have a good relationship with the people in your fraternity and on campus with everyone?
I did. In fact, politics did not matter in our fraternity. It was the only one on campus, and everyone got along. In fact, the one student who was spearheading all of the accusations, saying I was an evil, racist, terrible person, he was actually our advisor for when we were associates trying to become members of the fraternity. He was the one in charge of our recruitment class. So I got to spend a lot of time with him. I played board games with him. We went to stuff together. So my shock of him being the person who was coming at me the most for saying I was proud to be from this country was very, very surprising. And then later on, as the fraternity started to remove me, it was my big brother in the fraternity that led that committee that told me that if I didn't endorse BLM and put up a personal statement saying that I support the organization, that students in the fraternity would do whatever it took to destroy my career and my future. And I've got to tell you, even though they said that, they have done the exact opposite. And that's who I am today.
And did any of the leadership in the fraternity, or even on campus, professors or administrators, did anyone come to your defense at all?
There was one conservative teacher who did, and I had 2 or 3 friends from the fraternity that supported me. And eventually, when I did leave the fraternity because they endorsed the BLM organization, they left with me as well. You know, our family, we're Gold Star.
Better off.
I think so. We're Gold Star member. We're Gold Star family members, and our cousin was shot and killed serving as a Chicago police officer. So no one has more respect for the police than our family does. And anytime that someone speaks out in opposition to the police, which in this country, they keep us safe and ensure that our rights are guaranteed to us, I can't stand it, and I won't support an organization or people that say that the police are what they were saying in 2020.
Yeah, and now the people that created Black Lives Matter are all millionaires living in mansions. How funny how that works. Where the millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars that they've received is pretty much missing and unaccounted for. So we'll see what comes out of those investigations if they're actually investigating. But when you were on campus, were other professors speaking out against you? Did they target you as far as grade wise, as far as schoolwork goes, and hit you on assignments because you expressed any conservative points of view?
Yes, they did. And in fact, in the book, we have the exact emails that they were sending. Two of the political science professors accidentally CC'd a friend of mine, a fellow student, and she was given a litany of emails that were attacking me. And the teachers were making light of the fact that I had to have a security escort on campus because students said to me and on social media that if they saw me, they were going to attack me. They laughed at the idea of that happening. And then also they thought that I was making it up, that I wasn't being serious. And of course, I had sent them the change.org petition. I had showed them the screenshots and the emails and the text messages from other students, and they made fun of it. And that goes all the way up to including the university president at the time, who made a joke to me on email saying that if I figured out how to take down change.org petitions, to let him know, because people make ones up about him all the time. And this is coming from a man who made $1.2 million every year compared to me, who is just a student trying to finish college and get a good job and move on with life.
That truly stunning. Did you file a complaint against those professors, and did anything come of it, or was it just simply ignored?
It was ignored. We had talked to one of the deans, and he tried to work something out to where I'd still be able to attend class. I did have to go in person, so I did have to have security with me. However, fortunately, I was never physically attacked on campus. However, there was an instance where, being from Tennessee, I love my sweet tea, and I need that every day to function like people need their coffee. And so I would go every morning to a fast food restaurant where I'd pick up my sweet tea and get my breakfast. And there was this female student from Belmont University who worked there, and I didn't know her at the time because everyone's still wearing masks, of course, and you can't tell who is who. However, she posted in the College Democrat group text that she had been putting gross stuff in my drinks for a very long period of time. And I ended up turning her into the school. At first, we went to the Nashville police, but fortunately, I was uninjured. I didn't have any health concerns. My doctor cleared me and ran a few tests, and I was okay, fortunately. However, we turned her into the school. And guess what the school did when they had the screenshots with her name on it saying that she had been committing battery against a fellow student? Do you know what the school did?
Well, I could say they probably did nothing, but I have a feeling it's worse than that.
Worse, they accepted her into Belmont Law School, and they were okay with her studying to become an attorney. That is the type of person that Belmont University wants to be a lawyer. Someone who, if they disagree with someone else, admits to poisoning their drinks. And then eventually, when she was called out on that social media platform for doing that, she joked and said, "It's not like I was putting rat poison in it or anything." So the sickness that people have is ridiculous. But what's even more disappointing is that the school was okay with someone like this representing them, which I think shows an immensely terrible problem that we have with adults not telling students, not telling younger people that there are consequences to their actions. And if she got away
That's
with
crazy.
something like this, it's only going. Imagine if she was an attorney doing the exact same thing like this.
We have them in New York. They Molotov cocktail police cars.
Exactly.
And they get off for probation.
It's terrifying what's going on with young people.
It is terrifying. And I can't imagine. I mean, this is why academia is destroying itself through self-inflicted wounds. This is why millions of Americans are reconsidering, is it worth it to go to college and getting a college degree? I mean, Gloria, as a mother, what are your thoughts that your son had to attend school that you're paying for, and he needed security to attend his classes because of these threats? What do you think as a mother?
my husband and I were shocked, to say the least. And actually, we had to practically beg for security. We did a Zoom call with campus police, and we offered to send in a security person with Stevie because they weren't taking it seriously. And finally, one of the officers said he would happily escort Stevie. He was one of us. He understood. And he said he would happily escort Stevie. But it's mind-boggling that your son has to go to school with security. It's mind-boggling. I could understand if my son came out of left field and all of a sudden became a conservative. But if you look at his Instagram, which has always been public, if you look at his LinkedIn page, you will see what he's done. He's worked for Republican candidates since he was 17 years old. So as a parent, it's shocking, it's frightening. And I called the then president of the university. I called him when all this started, right after the 4th of July. And his assistant told me that they're aware of some drama going on around Stevie's social media, but the president would be calling me back. He never called me. I waited and waited. He never called. Instead, they had an attorney from Belmont call me and say to me, "Are you going to be suing Belmont University?" What am I suing Belmont University for? I mean, what for? No, I called you to see what you're going to do about keeping my son safe when he's on campus, when we go back, because it was 2 weeks. So when we go back to school, what are you going to be doing to ensure my son's safety? Somebody will be calling you back. No one did. If Stevie, my husband, and I had not reached out to the campus security, we wouldn't have gotten anywhere. My son would have been there, and we don't know what would have happened to him. So it's very frightening, and I can understand why parents are now beginning to wake up and be afraid of places where children go to. I mean, if you can't, it doesn't matter what you believe in, it doesn't matter who you are. Campuses should be a safe community for all students. We're supposed to be sending our children to college so they can see things, learn from other people, not learn how to think, but learn everything going on equally. But somehow that eludes American universities and probably universities worldwide.
Yeah, it's truly stunning. I mean, universities are supposed to be the place for intellectual curiosity, exploring different ideas, learning how to think critically, and having an open exchange, an open dialogue on the issues. And I don't care if you're a full-blown conservative or a hardcore communist. No student should ever need campus security to escort them when they're attending classes. I mean, that just shouldn't happen. And yet we see this ideological intolerance that's designed to target and destroy anyone that dissents from a narrow-minded point of view, the progressive far left agenda that's being pushed on the student body. So, Gloria, what do you hope people get out of the book, Outcast, How the Radical Left Tried to Destroy a Young Conservative? What are you hoping people take away, the biggest takeaway from this book?
The biggest takeaway is, if it happened, it's an educational tool for parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles. If it happened to my son, it can happen to your child also. That's the biggest takeaway. And I want it does have everything in there, everything. We call it a picture book at times because it does have every document in there. And I want parents to take away, hey, we need to figure out what's going on at our child's school. Because I do think that we think they're 18 years old, they go to college, and they're adults. We don't need to be there for them, but we have to keep the lines of communication open. Our children have to be taught that no matter what they believe in, we are conservatives. You bring that conservative agenda with you to school and you be proud of it. And it's okay for you to be a conservative. You don't have to change just because you're being bullied or pressured to, like our son was from his fraternity. You don't need to change. You stand up for who you are. And that is the message I want parents to give to their children. Because if we don't stand up now, our country is gone. And after America falls, there is nowhere else to go. So as conservatives, if we do not do something to help our children now, that's it. We're done. That's the message I want.
And everyone needs to do their research on where they're sending their children to schools. They need to really look at these schools and really speak to other people that already send kids to these schools to get an idea of what they're doing. Because guess what? If 40% of the student body decides they're not going to attend that school because they're going to be conservative and targeted, that school's going out of business. So we do have power. And I think it's so great that you wrote this book, because it really gives parents a guide on what they need to look out for and what they could do to push back. And if these schools start losing student bodies, they're going to have to rethink their policies and maybe bring back some normalcy. So I really appreciate it. We're going to have links up at campusreform.org and the PAS report. Gloria, Stevie, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you
you.
so much.